You are live.
Thank you. If I could please call to order the National Association of Counties and New York Association of Counties Committee together at 9:04 a.m. on December 1st. If I could please have a motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting, November 3rd. That's done by Supervisor Bramer and seconded, I hope, by Supervisor Leggett.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. For purposes of documentation here today. We do have a quorum of 3 of our members, and so we have Supervisor Leggett and Supervisor Bramer here. At this point in time, I'll open privilege of the floor and any public comment from anyone. Hearing none. Okay, so let's check off hopefully all of our items left on our agenda for the end of the year. And we can start by talking about the action items. I'm hopeful you all had a chance to look at the resolutions from NYSAC that were unanimously approved through their training session. And I think, though, let's start, if that's okay with everyone here, with Julie and Amazon, just to have an update. Last time we tried to have a presentation from Amazon, we had a little bit of tech troubles during distance awareness of week. And Julie has taken some time since then to meet extensively with Amazon and give us kind of an update on her thoughts and if it's something that we could or incorporate or need to incorporate. So Julie, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I had a Zoom meeting with Travis Brown for about an hour and a half a couple of weeks ago. And he walked me through the process of the Amazon Prime platform and answered many questions that I had. The first issue, I guess, was whether or not we needed to sign a contract. And I brought that up last time. We do not need to sign a contract because we're already members of Omnia Partners. So that won't have to be an action item on the agenda. As long as you tell me yay or nay as far as proceeding with getting this set up. I asked questions regarding return policies because I've heard there's been some challenges with returns. He said that's not an issue. They supply the labels, it goes back, everything's done seamlessly. I asked about paying the vendors because Saratoga County said they had an issue with having multiple vendors and not paying directly to Amazon business. He said all payments now go to Amazon. So we only have to set them up as a vendor. And that will be very, very easy to do. We can set it up in different ways as far as orders and payments. We can do pay by invoice or P card. And we can do a combination of both of those. I would still want to have controls as far as requiring purchase orders for certain dollar amounts. And he said that he would tie our purchasing policy to our account so that there will be those controls there. And I would like to have the approval process because we do have so many things on bid. I don't want everybody going to just go to Amazon Business because they can and circumvent our bids and the policy. So I would work with him to get those controls in place. He said that he could set up local vendors and minority and women-owned businesses as a priority on the account, so they would come up first if we were searching certain items. He said he would also help with the local outreach of local vendors that might want to get on the Amazon business platform. I originally thought that we were limited as to what categories we could purchase from. He said under the Sourcewell contract, they do list those out, but then there's a catch-all for like hard to find items that covers basically everything else that we might be looking for. And we could see some discounts on certain things for volume purchases. Orders would typically be fulfilled in 5 to 7 days, which is different from what we have now with our bids. Usually it's next day or within a couple days. But if we were to purchase Amazon Prime, then we would obviously get it within 1 or 2 days. That is a charge, and it would be a sliding scale for the number of users we have on our account. And to be honest, I don't know that we would spend enough to justify having that initially. You know, we'll be able to get reports and have analytics as part of this that I would want to look at maybe after a year and say, yeah, we'd be saving a ton of money if we went to Prime or added Prime as well. So that's it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
There's just a couple, just to clarify on tying the purchasing policy to it. Would that mean that employees who are accessing the Amazon account are going to be limited within the parameters of what our current policy is? Is that-
Yes.
Okay, so it
Yes.
should be set up to restrict.
Very strict. Yep.
And I guess the second question then is, you did mention that there's that ability for local or minority/women-owned businesses. How does that work with the requirement to go with a low bidder?
We wouldn't be required to purchase from them, but they're gonna come up as a prior or as a preferred vendor for us. So they might be a little bit more, but at least we can see on there that they are a vendor. They would be a quote option. And we could go with them, obviously, hopefully they are low, they're local, you know, they don't have the shipping costs that you know, an outside vendor would have, but.
Those are just the two that I wanted to make sure I clarified in my mind. So thank you.
Questions, Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What would we be buying from them? Or through them, really, it's through, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it could be technology, things like right now, this morning I approved a PO for tablets. You know, we're buying off Sourcewell right now, but we potentially, and that's a national contract. So we have the authority to do that, but we could use Amazon Business as another resource, and maybe with a volume of 20, we could have gotten a bigger discount than what we got from the vendor we purchased from. So it's going to be another option for us, basically to get quotes to not necessarily have to do bids, because this is a national contract we'd be buying off, but we'd still want to get, you know, do our quotes and make sure we're getting the best pricing. But it covers basically everything. Hard to find items. Trying to think. See, we have so many bids that it would be anything that's not on bid that we could use this for.
Okay. Would this supplant Mason or any of these other vendors we've been using?
We would still buy from Mason for what we have on bid. But again, if we couldn't get something from WB Mason or from Staples on state contract, then we would go here. Just as another resource. Basically, it's another resource. It's an option for us. And that's what I tell everybody about state contract. That's it. We don't have to use it, but it's an option. But if we start using it and we see that we're saving a lot of money, I mean, they're saying that we could save 2 to 3% per month on our spend. You know, obviously we'll want to look at it more as we go.
Because of prices.
Correct. And discounts, volume discounts.
Okay.
And they're even talking about a paper program where their case of paper right now is about $10 less than what we're paying on state contract. I don't know of the quality. I mean, I would want to buy a case and maybe run it through our office first before we put it out to everybody else. But it would be I mean, that would be huge, a huge savings for the county just on paper alone.
And would municipalities be able to piggyback on this?
If you're a member of Omnia Partners,
Okay,
You can't do it through the county, but you could set up your own account through Omnia.
okay,
You just have to become a member.
thank you.
Supervisor Bramer, and if I, just before I go to you, just while you're still on the municipality piece of it. So it's not something like a shared purchasing that we could offer to the county or to the municipality.
No,
Okay.
each municipality
Set
has to be a
themselves up.
member of Omnia.
Okay,
And then Amazon Business would set you up with your own account, your own users. And your own analytics, basically, for your town.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. When you say you're pushing this out to the employees, so all employees then have access to go in and purchase things
No.
off of here?
No,
That's not,
it would only be people that are basically in charge of purchasing now.
okay,
It would definitely not be all employees.
okay.
We would
So I
want
thought
those
we heard
controls.
At some point that people just go out and buy pencils and do all this stuff on their own Amazon accounts.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that, sorry.
Yeah, no, you want me to recap what we said last time? Yeah. Supervisor Bramer's, when we had talked to them at NYSAC and we had talked about, could this be a potential use in our county? What we had learned is that there may be department heads or people that do have an ability to do purchasing that, that hard to find item or something they needed much quicker. They were using their own Amazon accounts, and that became like not a red flag, but one that we want to be really respectful of people's own, their own property, their own time, their own accounts. So
Right.
how was there something that we could do to kind of fill that gap at the county, and if it was a good, option? So
I think this would take care of that. I
Yeah.
mean, we're gonna give access to individuals that already have already have purchasing power within their departments.
Yeah.
And maybe we have to set up some kind of a tutorial, or instructional manual as to what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, and but it's definitely got potential.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thanks. I like the idea of the women-owned businesses popping up at the top. Can we is it optional to make it so local businesses?
Yes, local was included in that.
Okay,
And there will be local outreach to vendors that aren't on Amazon Business currently, but may want to join as part, knowing that the county is going to be buying from Amazon Business. It's a way for them to potentially grow their business,
it sounds like a good option. I don't like the idea of spending the money for Prime. But
And I wouldn't at first. I would look at it after a year and say, okay, yeah, we've spent this much on shipping. Is that would it be worth it for us to purchase Prime and save on that shipping? It's more than $14 a month.
for a business
Yeah.
like ours.
I do think that the analytics that they'd be able to give you, you'd be able to tell pretty effectively and efficiently whether or not it's something that's going to have that favorite word around here that we all like to talk about, our return on our investment. So
And he said that I could either run the reports myself, or we could be set up on an automatic schedule so that he would send them to me once a month, quarterly, whatever. So we could constantly monitor what's happening. And I think with the purchasing policy being tied to it, I'm gonna have a good idea of what's going on anyway.
I wanted to just also say thank you. You kept a very open mind about this. And I know it was something that Amanda and I literally stumbled on at NYSAC and looking at, talking to the different organizations were there. And thinking this might have some potential. So, I think it's a benefit from whenever any of us attend training, but also to bring information back and so I want to say thanks. I know it was just a different process to learn about it. But
And just so you guys know, there's also several other New York State counties that are using this. I mean, we're talking Erie County, Albany County, Suffolk County, Rockland County. And I did speak with Saratoga County, who's using it minimally, but he said they are still using it. So we're not the first ones to make a run at this, if we do.
so Supervisor Bramer, was that But at this point in time, then Amanda, what would we need to do? Ask for a resolution to?
You don't need a resolution.
Okay.
Julie's saying that you just need consensus because we don't need a contract. So she's just looking for this committee to give her a blessing to move on it.
I'm so glad you're here. So is there a consensus of the committee to tell Julie good luck, and we hope to hear lots of good things about it, and
Good luck, come
Yeah.
back by the end of 6 months.
yeah. And I would say, who knows what happens with committees next year, whether this committee stays as a special committee or not, but if it does not, I think reporting back through your committee, if it is here, to give an update to this committee at some point next year, if it's in existence, so either way, being able to keep the county attorneys off, whatever training and outreach needs to be done to our employees with it. But I think it sounds great. We really appreciate it. So, all right, any other comments about Amazon? Yes.
So just to be clear, it's because no contract is needed because it's Omnia?
Correct, Omnia Partners is the
Omnia.
national contract that we'd be utilizing.
Okay,
So basically, the state of Utah has done the bid or the RFP already. And we're piggybacking on that through Omnia Partners, the national contract.
Well, and I'm sure too that Don Lehman can help with the outreach as well with them to our local businesses. That would be great. Yeah, and of course to the municipalities as well, to let them maybe an email out, to all the municipalities, to the city to let them know, this might be something they want to look into as well and our experience with it. So, well, thank you. We really appreciate it, Julie. I know you're busy, so that was great. Moving on to employee retention interviews. So Jackie, I know you were doing some homework on this and how this works in some other counties and what your thoughts on it. Do you want to join us at the table and we can talk a little bit about it? I don't know if you all still have your examples that we handed out a few months ago from Saratoga, somewhere in here. But
I don't think I received examples. I received PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, yeah,
From Amanda. Oh,
that's what
okay.
I was referring to. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I thought you meant
Sure.
interview templates. So I got the PowerPoint presentation from Amanda. Couldn't find that exact one online, but the same presenter did something similar that's on the NYSAC YouTube. So I watched that actually a couple of times because his is the overall retention strategy. I've talked with Liza. Some parts of it are clearly employment and training, while other parts are HR, internal things. So I think I was asked specifically to look at the retention interviews or stay interviews, whatever we want to call them. So I've done some research on that. I think I would love if we moved perhaps our exit interview current process to more of a survey process. We've talked in the past about making an electronic survey, making a confidential anonymous survey. In order to do that, we would have to pay a service. IT has said they don't have a way of de-identifying that. It would be truly confidential and anonymous. SurveyMonkey to get like the lowest cost annual subscriptions about $1,000, it was $75 a month. So we'd have to find money to do that, but I think we would get a lot more responses. I think people are just either uncomfortable giving feedback. We could do like from highly satisfied to highly dissatisfied. It would just be real quick and easy instead of people getting into the weeds a little too much. Supervisor Leggett said it on a recent exit interview with me. It's like, whoo, what do you do with that information? So I think moving that to a survey format, so we would have some compiled results in certain categories, then leaving, obviously a space for people to provide additional feedback or say, yes, I would still like a follow-up in-person conversation. I think we could just get some more information that way. And then for stay interviews, there's a lot of information out there in the HR world about like best practices and how to develop this process. And I think first step would be to develop a team of, department heads and leadership to come up with what is the substance of, what are the issues we want to hit. And then what kind of feedback are we hoping to get? And then to do kind of a top-down process. So if, in a small department, the department head could do those. But in a larger department, if you have 150 people, one person can't do all 150 people. So kind of go down through the tiers. Because all of the research that I read says it has to be somebody in that, in that function, somebody's direct manager, so that, nobody wants to come and talk to me about a specific technical problem they're having in their area, knowing that I can't speak knowledgeably about it because I don't understand how phones work when you're out on a CPS call. I don't know, for example. And kind of roll it out that way. I also am hopeful that our incoming county administrator, who has lots of HR experience and has done programs like this, will have some good input on how to keep us from going too far down a wrong path, keep us moving forward. But I would, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a better use of our time than the exit interviews. I've just found that people who have valuable input don't always want to provide it. And sometimes people who have a lot of personal feelings, as opposed to like substantive issue related things, are the ones who spend the most time with. And I don't know that that's the feedback that we should focus on. I think it's the people who are unwilling to talk are the ones we should hear from the most. And I'm hoping that an anonymous survey, whether you ask for it or not, will send you the email link on your personal email after you're out the door. So there's no way that you'll be affected while you're still here. I think it would just be a better strategy going forward, or I'd at least like to try it, because I feel like what we're doing isn't the best we can do.
First, obviously on behalf of the committee, thank you for taking the time to research this and to again, be open-minded and looking at state interviews. And also, you went one step above that and said, how can we improve our exit interview process, and recognizing the concerns that employees have when they leave about confidentiality. We've talked in the past about like boxes and putting them all over the county of a survey. Like, how do we know how things are going right now, that where it could be anonymous? And there were concerns over all of that. So I think trying to find ways to capture how we can do better and how we can better support our employees is important. That being said, I would like to see the feedback or the comments or concerns from the committee members that are here. And of course, if our county attorney raises any, but so let's see what you guys think. I know it's a big crowd this morning, so we're both on the spot. Supervisor Bramer.
Well, as having gone through those exit interviews, I agree with you that there would be a better way to try to get some more substantive information prior to people leaving. We want to try to make their work environment better before they get to the point where they're like, I've had it, I can't deal with this anymore. And like you said, some of it was just personal, and I don't know that we're ever going to be able to solve all those things, but process-wise or systems or issues substantively that we can try to address. I'm glad that you're open-minded about trying to do these stay interviews. And certainly Mr. Taflin can hopefully provide some insight into how to do that better. I don't know. I don't have any further insights.
So you'd be in support of both those concepts and looking a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Supervisor Leggett.
The Survey Monkey was about how much?
It's about $1,000 a year. It's $75 a month for the cheapest package.
Yeah.
Wait, can we get it cheaper through Amazon?
That was good.
Yeah, the only question in my mind, which I don't have an answer to today, is what access or becomes of those responses under our disclosure requirements under state law. So I would have to look at that and look for guidance to see who else is doing a similar process in New York State and what FOIL and the Committee on Open Government says about access to it. It may not be a big deal that there's access to it. I don't know. But it would be good for us to know that before we start creating a new class of records that the county would have to maintain. And then I guess we'd also have to look at the retention policies that are currently in place to see whether they cover this type of data or record, or if we're gonna have to modify the retention policy to include this new class of documents. So I don't know the
What?
answers to either today.
I can't speak to the retention issue. I hope that we're addressing the exit interviews currently in the retention policy, but yeah, but as it relates to compiling the data, I know we've looked at this before with exit interviews, and also when things are scored, applications and octax, personnel issues, and knowing that FOIL, there is some requirements with once you tabulate how many over the last year, which should be data, I would think, right? That would be given to the supervisors and the public anyway. How satisfied are our employees after they leave? What's that type of information? I'm not sure, but I do think that we're not reinventing the wheel here. So hopefully we can get some good data from NYSAC and the other counties on how they're handling that. Supervisor Bramer.
You hit it, we're not reinventing the wheel, we already have personnel records from exit interviews. So those records already exist. I mean, I would think they're protected as like confidential personnel records, because a lot of them are nitty gritty, so to speak, about performance, which I don't think is released to the public, but what do I know?
I was not saying that I had an issue or that there was some kind of a roadblock. Just that I would want to go through it, particularly the piece of it being anonymous and electronic. It's just a good idea to take a look back through and make sure we understand our solid footing before we launch it. That's all. I don't misunderstand my statement as there may be an issue. I'm not saying there may be an issue. I'm just saying personally, I haven't looked at that, and I like to try to look at everything as it starts to come across my office for the first time since I've been there. So this falls in that category. That's all.
Well, perhaps we can have then Jackie work with the county attorney's office as you start to, look into this even more, Jackie, in terms of that concern, both retention and FOIL. But also we have in other committees started talking about like a checkbox when employees are applying for positions to say, keep this confidential or don't keep it confidential. And maybe that idea too, with the exit surveys or the stay interviews, from the perspective of, let the employee make that decision. Where would you like this to be conveyed publicly to our board and the staff, or would you like this to be kept confidential where it's only seen by these members of leadership, so that, or is it completely anonymous and don't put your name here at all? So I think there's options of how we could look at that. But the key here, for a small amount of money throughout the year to invest in how can we better retain our employees? How can we have a more inclusive environment here at the county and respond in an effective manner to concerns of personnel and learn lessons? We can all learn lessons when employees leave. So I think it's important that we're also looking at, or from this perspective, those lessons learned when employees are still here. And how we can respond. So I appreciate the dual role that you've brought for concern.
And I think getting the electronic survey format for exit interviews specifically, it can be used for other things. Back 2020, I think, when we were coming back into the office.
Yes.
We did
Yep.
like a how
We
safe
did.
do you feel coming back to the office?
That's right.
Level, what about? So
Personnel.
we have done it, but we had to use the tourism department had an account because we don't have an account, but then I had to ask them for the reports. It's just, I wouldn't want to do that with exit interviews and things like that.
Well, it sounds like there might be a need for that regardless, to look into. That's a great
Sure, we can use
point.
it for a lot of things.
That was very helpful when we did that. Supervisor Bramer.
Do you want a motion to authorize HR to get its own Survey Monkey account?
If we did that, then it would have to be ported over to finance for a funding source. And maybe right now is a good time to do that as the year is ending as well.
Well, we don't have any money in the contingent account.
Supervisor Leggett.
Right, I wonder, we're a special committee here. So would this be a recommendation on to Jackie's regular standing committee?
It's my understanding Supervisor, like the special committees have all the rights and authorities as standing committees. So we can certainly pass that resolution here if we choose to the full board and onto finance. Or as you suggest, if you were more comfortable with that practice, to have it sent over to personnel. But just, I know we've done some research in the authority of special committees as well.
Just, keep everybody in the loop on things. I'd be more comfortable with it going on to the regular standing committee. That the NYSAC NACo is basically a referral agency for various actions. It's coming in from a larger area, going through a funnel here, and then we put it into the appropriate squares.
I certainly appreciate that perspective, Supervisor Leggett, and will agree to disagree on some aspects of it, but I have absolutely no problem if you're comfortable. If you want to make that resolution over to the personnel committee. I hope it's not a duplication in going back through this process, but I think it's a good awareness and to keep everyone informed on it as well. But I think it's absolutely critical all supervisors be invested in supporting the retention and quality of our employment here. So if that's your motion.
So
Can I be clear on what that motion is? It would be dual, not only for the, should we do them separately? Do we need a motion for the,
You're just referring to personnel.
both issues? Yeah.
I mean, I would say if you get a motion and unanimous support, then that will be a referral to personnel.
Okay. Is that your intention? Supervisor Bramer, were you seconding that?
I just want to be clear though, the exit interview, or I don't even want to tie it just to exit interviews, the Survey Monkey thing. Like, once we buy an account, we could use it for whatever. Right?
So could we do two separate resolutions or motions for referrals then, just to make this a little cleaner? One would be the Survey Monkey investment for those confidential and other types of surveys. And then the other that we'd be looking for is a referral over for Jackie to work through her committee in developing those stay and exit interviews when the new county administrator comes on. Okay, so the first is then made by Supervisor Leggett, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. All in favor? I'm sorry, was there any more discussion?
I just
I
wanted
did
to clarify that the account is for human resources, the Survey Monkey.
Oh,
Yeah.
good clarification. Yes.
Want to make sure that's clear.
Supervisor Leggett,
yes,
Supervisor Bramer,
Yes.
Jackie, we're good for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we voted on that, right?
Yeah.
The second, Supervisor Bramer, did you want to make that?
Yeah, I will refer that over. It's actually, if I can read this correctly, a pending item that they are talking about workforce retention and that sort of thing. I'm not sure that we've had much discussion in personnel.
I think that was added last month, and I was
Okay.
asked to put together some numbers that I actually have for the next meeting.
Okay. All right, great.
But a separate
Yeah.
item to make sure that that stays on the agenda and talking about that moving forward and get updates on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that seconded by you, Supervisor Leggett? Any other discussion? Right now, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Jackie, thank you very much. We look forward to those updates. Okay,
Chairwoman,
yes,
will those go right to personnel now?
I don't know. Amanda?
They're not on the agenda. We do have very long agendas today, so we can, if Jackie's already talking about something else related to those, she may be able to add that right in.
Would you just mind mentioning it in your discussion that maybe the next meeting you'll have more information by then, being able to work with Larry and whatnot?
Sure. And John,
I'm sorry,
and John.
and John.
I don't know when
Of
he
course.
starts.
Yeah, I guess we'll learn that.
When is it, Craig? Oh, January. That's a bummer.
Saratoga Employee Appreciation Day. I'm not, we referred that over to the county administrator to take a look at. Perhaps at this point in time, we could do a referral to his committee to get that item on that pending list over there and get it off this one.
Yeah.
Is that made by Supervisor Leggett? Second by Supervisor Bramer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Number 4, we're starting to look at the resolutions that came through NYSAC. And so the first one is through the Department of Social Services, so her supportive board directors, children with special needs, and the Standing Committee on Public Health and Mental Health Resolutions, as referred by the Director of Health Services, excuse me, not Department of Social Services, but Health Services. I believe that she did provide some additional information in this for us to understand each aspect of this on the agenda. And then you do have a copy of the exact resolution that came through noted in your packet as page 11, but it's your second page. And so hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at this, and I would just ask that if there's a desire here, could we move this one to the full board for support? That's moved by Supervisor Bramer.
And now on these, they'll go as is. Each one as it's written here. All the resolutions.
That's how we've handled it in the past, Supervisor, like it's the exact language that you see on those attachments from NYSAC. And can I just have you, I know I don't need a second, but to have discussion so that we can have it on the floor. Did you want to second that?
Second.
Thank you. So moving on to the discussion, I did have an opportunity to speak with one of our representatives' offices at the state. And what was nice is when I heard, oh, we just got a copy of the resolutions, we're starting to work on those now. And it took me a minute to think, what resolutions were those? And they came from this process and going to the full board and that support. So I really do think it shows our state and federal representatives where we're at on these particular issues and asking for their support as they start to legislate that at those levels. So, but yes, it would go as it appears.
Because these have all been passed out of these NYSAC committees.
Yes, and I will defer to the chairwoman of the NYSAC Resolutions Committee to see if there's anything else.
Right. Resolution.
The ones from the fall seminar. I would have to defer to Amanda that these are just taken right out of the packet. Yeah. Okay. And I had a question, Chairwoman, about you said the comments in here, which are very helpful. Those were from our Director of Health Services.
Correct.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Just that local impact that she's providing. I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
These ones under number 4, I completely support all these.
This motion to approve all 10.
Is your motion to approve all 10?
Is that what's under number 4? I wanted to have a discussion on number 5.
Number 4.
So all
Okay, yeah, I made that motion.
Okay.
Yeah, and Craig seconded it.
Okay. Any further discussion? And just
1 second.
County Attorney, I know that you prepare these. I think these are resolutions that would be coming from your office, so it would work in the same way the previous ones did. Did that process work fine for you?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know.
They have it in Word as well at NYSAC if you
Oh.
prefer that.
It's not my preferences that govern the process, so we'll use whatever we need to get done.
Just a little more effective.
Yeah.
A copy and paste, right? But no,
Thank you.
NYSAC makes that available to all our counties, which is great.
There's a lot here, but I mean, most of these have to do with children and support for early education, early intervention. And you can see where Janelle's like saying many of these are desperate need. I don't know if she has like some sort of tally between desperate need and urgent need. But yeah, I don't know how we could be against any of these. Many are which are calling on the state to give us more funding or take away this burden. So,
Put it on schools or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Supervisor, who made that motion?
I did.
My only other question might be for consideration is, can we attach a copy of this agenda with those notes to when we send them to our representatives? Because I do think, to your point, it really highlights, for example, Warren County spent $18,000 in transportation costs with reimbursement for early intervention. I think there's a local impact, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
Might be helpful to just attach this.
what if we asked our director to put that into a letter
Okay.
to, when we transmit it?
company.
I'm sure she doesn't need any more work, but it is very relevant information.
Or of course, the clerk could
Yeah, maybe,
take those
yeah,
comments
like a
and
mail or
draft
something.
something with her amazing drafting writing letter abilities.
Just put it as a footnote on any of these. If I was down in the legislature looking through what came across the decks here.
Yeah.
Just little, oh, 18,000, now 65,000. Okay.
Maybe if you just take this as a summary sheet and,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't want anybody
A
that.
letter with our transmittal
Okay.
to our legislators. So this information could just go into the cover letter that goes with the resolutions.
Would that be okay?
Perfect.
Is that what you were going to say, County Attorney? Better. Okay. Any more discussion on number 4? All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Number 5 is a support for Standing Committee on Public Health and Mental Health Resolution as referred by the Office for Community Services. This came from Rob York. And he took a look at it and was talking about the, I think this is the Rob York one, yeah. Resolution request targeted state. This did come through his committee and a referral over to our committee to look at this and support it.
Oh,
Yes, I was at that committee meeting the other day.
well, I will move this for sure. I have a comment too.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. Discussion, Supervisor Breimer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So we do have in front of the ARPA committee, an application from Glens Falls Hospital to help with this exact issue. And I very much support going forward to the full board with this resolution from NYSAC, but I also think I want to put a motion forward, sending this resolution to ARPA for ARPA's consideration. Because I think that application that we have from Glens Falls Hospital, which went to the Community Services Board to be funded out of the $1 million of mental health and behavioral health services money, is very important, but the Community Services Board is not going to have enough money to even give that application a nominal award.
So let's handle your first request for a resolution first, which would take it to the full board. And I guess what I'd be asking you in that consideration is to also in that cover letter, have our clerk work with you to identify that there's a desperate need in our community and that there's a dollar amount attached to it to let our state legislators know that perhaps if there's funding, that we should also be advocating for the funding for that program.
Yeah, I would be happy to work with Alan on that.
That makes sense.
I'll just take what they wrote in their application.
I think that might be a great advocacy effort
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Supervisor Leggett, are you comfortable with that?
So what do we do with this resolution for us then?
just gonna
Bring it
forward
to the
it
full
to the
board,
full board
ask for their support and
and then send it to our
Include that,
state
yeah.
reps.
any other discussion on that?
Because when Linda was here from the hospital and driving. The issues they have, who knew that you'd have somebody in there for so long?
You know, a child.
Yeah, and they can't leave the room.
Sorry, we're having.
Okay. The Roberts rules in me, it's like, but I think it's great discussion. So all in favor,
Hi.
any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Now let's go to your second part of the resolution, Supervisor Bramer, for your second motion.
I just want to see that the ARPA committee gets this. I mean, I can certainly give it to them, but I'd like to have a referral from our committee saying, hey, this is really an important issue statewide. Although Glens Falls Hospital has told us that we're like worse than the rest of the capital region for whatever reason.
When you make this motion to refer it over to ARPA, your request is also to attach that application from Glens Falls, so that the ARPA committee, that's brought to their attention since it
Yeah.
was referred to mental health. Okay.
That's a good point, because I don't know that they've seen the application because it went straight to Community
Mhm.
Services Board.
Right.
That's a good idea.
We did hear that presentation, and I think the presentation was incredibly helpful, but also
And-
that application.
And incredibly disturbing.
Yes, it was. And I don't know if anyone's taken her up on going over and having a tour. I know that was something that was offered, and we should probably all be thinking about that, especially around the holidays, to really see the impact and the need. So maybe we could encourage our supervisors to go over there as well. From the ARPA chair.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could send that, but Supervisor Leggett.
Yeah, so recap for me, the whole chain here. Resolution before us right now, but it is something that's being addressed by the Community Service Board, correct?
They have the ARPA application from the hospital. The Community Services Board does, because it was. Their application is to address mental health and behavioral health issues. So when it came in the door back in August, it got flagged to go to the Community Services Board. But we as ARPA only allocated to them $1 million, and they've already spent. Does anybody know?
I don't know the exact amount, but they have, I'm sorry.
Oh, by all means.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tammy.
Go
I
ahead.
don't know the exact amount that they spent, but it's a good portion of that amount. Of
And the-
$8 for, I know there's at least 3 entities that they were using that they have contracts. So, but not, I think the Flintstones Hospital request was 4 million,
No, it's not that much, 2.5.
2.5, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So
I,
it's not complete, I mean, they're trying to renovate some. It's not building a whole new facility, it's renovating the emergency department. So that there'll be space for kids and space for adults.
And
Going through mental health crises.
Right,
Anyway, so I know with the ARPA money, we still have money, especially since some of the businesses failed to pass. There's a little bit of money still left.
let's get it on, yeah, that
It could
agenda.
go towards the hospital's application.
And if you recall, we did have a supervisor from Queensberry who said, hey, just let us know if you're gonna need more money than the $1 million. And I know he said he'd be happy to allocate additional dollars, since the survey that we did highlight mental health was our top priority.
Well, I hope there'll be more than just 1 or 2 supervisors who see that this is a critical need for our area.
The motion is to get this resolution over in front of the ARPA board, attached with the application, and recognizing that there may be a need for additional funding.
And yes, ask them to take this into consideration.
Okay. Do
Clarify that.
you second that then, Supervisor Laker? Great. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Number 6, this is the support for standing committee on public safety, and I appreciate Chairman Jahasi being here. He's the lone supervisor in the room and I also appreciate his support at NYSAC as he we stood together in front of the NYSAC Public Safety Board talking about this exact issue. And I know there's been talk at the committee about continuing this dialogue in Warren County and how we can even be more responsive. So that's a resolution encouraging the state legislature and governor to enact legislation to require reporting of sex offenders in short-term rentals. Can I have a motion to get that on the floor, please?
I'll move that.
And could I have it seconded?
Sure.
Thank you. So it's on the floor for discussion.
Yeah.
Can I start with a little legal context on this, just so we're all on the same page? Currently, under state law, an individual who's classified as a sex offender in the state statute has an obligation to report and keep updated their primary residence, which by definition is any place where they stay for 10 consecutive days or more. There is no requirement in the state of New York for a sex offender to report where they are staying if it's not deemed their primary residence for a period of 10 days or more. So if they are staying at a relative's house for 9 days, a friend's house for 9 days, a hotel or a motel for 9 days, there is no requirement that that individual report where he is staying. I'm not passing any comment on the proposed NYSAC resolution, but I think it's important as my role as legal advisor to make sure the committees are aware of what the law actually is in the state of New York and what this resolution proposes to do or not do in a very limited, restricted area of short-term rentals.
Thank you, to our county attorney for that background. And that background, as Chairman Gerasi probably recalls, was certainly discussed at NYSAC and detail. And the idea being that there is this loophole in essence that it does not address transiency. And if you recall in 2020 or 2021, we did hear from a resident of Queensbury that came to the full board and passionately spoke about concerns with sex offenders staying in short-term rentals, particularly in residential areas, and the county not being aware where there is not state legislation to require them to do so. And so what NYSAC took up was this idea of requiring that type of notification. When I reference what Warren County is doing, I know Chairman Gerasi's committee has been talking here and there with the undersheriff, and he has brought forward some really great ideas on how Warren County can be even more responsive when we have sex offenders that are staying in our county, with notification to the sheriff's office as a public issue of public safety. But this particular resolution, again, passed by NYSAC, addresses state legislation where some counties had particularly local laws and some rules around this issue. But NYSAC felt that it should be across the state of New York and not just specific to some counties, as well as addressing all sex offenders, and seeing what happens in Albany as they start to look for support for this issue. So hopefully I didn't complicate it, but that gives you the two aspects of it. Chairman Gerasi, if you wouldn't mind if I could extend privilege of the floor, is there anything that you wanted to add to this or? Thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, Supervisor Seaver should be recognized for the leadership statewide on this issue. There was overwhelming support for this at the NYSAC conference. And that support comes from dozens of counties throughout the state who recognize that there is this loophole within this law. So I applaud Supervisor Seaver for moving this forward and getting it this far to the state association. Hopefully the legislature will take it up. So we do believe that there is a need for this. And as you state the law, County Attorney, that's exactly what the issue is. That somebody who is going to be staying somewhere that meets the sex offender criteria, there is some responsibility, we believe, to let the ownership of that property know what who's going to be staying there.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that recognition as well. Thank you, Chairman. Supervisor Leggett.
And is that already required of a sex offender if they stay at a hotel or motel? No.
Absolutely not. And it's not, in essence, this NYSAC resolution is only focusing on short-term rentals and is not focusing on any other location where a sex offender who's required to register may spend the night up to 9 nights and not violate the registration law. So it's only limited to one type of property where a sex offender might stay.
That are, just to clarify, that are listed on those and identified as a short-term rental. Hotels have a different definition under the law, which is why it's not included in this.
Who administers this?
The resolution had asked for the state to consider having it part of the New York State sex offender registry. So that's administered through, I believe, UPJS in some capacity. And they do, it would then give the ability, our residents, if they want to know if a sex offender is in their community, is living near them, for level 3s, they can go on to the website and they can search by their zip code or their address, and they're able to tell. That's all administrated through the state. What our undersheriff has also shared with us is that, and all sheriffs at the conference agreed that that was something too, that through a program with the sheriff's offices, they could also administer notification in a county. And that would be doable. And in fact, that there is already a program that does work with not particularly this population, but other notifications. So there was support throughout the sheriff's offices for that as well. But I know this resolution is asking for it to become part of the state program. And then our undersheriff, of course, is talking with us about, how that our own sheriff's office could provide. It was ideal, and I don't want to speak for him. I know public safety is going to be addressing this issue as well. But I appreciate his research, his support, and his ideas moving not just this forward, but how we can even be more responsive to the need of public safety and, of course, our children in our community.
And of course, along with public safety are civil rights. So the civil rights of an individual that's been convicted and such, and after the term of their conviction, then there's more restrictions put on to their activity. They can't be an employee of a STR or even own or operate one and things like that. How's that all going to play out?
It was my understanding that that is the process that NYSAC is going to be working on with different legislators in Albany as they start to take this legislation under consideration. And I believe that the law, and I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer or even well-versed in those questions that you have right now, Supervisor Leggett. But I do know that there are already circumstances around that have been addressed. Supervisor Brainerd.
Oh, it's okay. I was gonna say that I also have a concern about this language saying that the person is immediately imprisoned. I don't think that meets their due process rights. I will still support the resolution going forward because I think our state legislators, wherever they are, need to be working on the issue. And I'm sure that type of thing and what my colleague just said about other civil rights issues that are raised in this particular proposal would be addressed as it's getting further developed. But especially in our area where we have so many STRs and we are a tourism community, we need to do something, and we can't really do it at the local level. It's got to come from the state.
Right, it's not a local level thing. And also, you're dealing with a whole industry here, short-term rentals, so that with every law that gets made, there's the enforcement to it and the application of it, and good luck. All those call the question.
Okay. All those in favor?
I don't have anything further.
Any opposed?
I'm an aye.
That carries, and we look forward to that continued discussion on public safety and how this plays out in Albany. So 2 quick items in our 2 minutes over to get them crossed off and this agenda totally cleaned out. The high performance leadership program, Amanda did provide some information, I believe in the packet on this. We have had one employee talk about a desire to attend this, and that will go through their appropriate committee or request for training as our policies and procedures already state. But I do think it brought, by notifying our county and our department heads of this availability, I think we're again encouraging them to finish up the Warren County program and then be able to be nominated through their committee or through this committee to take this training. So that was just kind of an update on that. We don't need any action. And the other action was the other item on the agenda, just for an update, was about the legislative conference and early bird registration being right around the corner. Again, a reminder to members to please let Amanda know if you would like to attend. And did we send an email out to the full board?
We didn't.
I would think we would want to do that as well.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right. Any other items that the committee would like to discuss?
Motion, sure.
I'd like to extend privilege of the floor before we adjourn, please. Their privilege of the floor. Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
I.
Any opposed? We are adjourned with only 3 minutes over, which I think